Yes, here we go. It's the Monday Club. It's a wee bit later than normal, so apologies for that. I was getting a wee trim that Jonathan's not impressed by. He's been pretty savage backstage, if you like. So I appreciate that, mate. If that's the mood you're in tonight, then the gloves can be off. I'm all for that as well. That's absolutely fine. I'm more than happy to have a wee ding dong. It's usually Terry on the receiving end, Jonathan, of me disagreeing with every point that he makes, but if that's the mood you're in on a Monday, obviously you had a crap weekend. I'm more than happy to get stuck in, mate. I look forward to it. Good evening to everyone. Hope you all had a good weekend who's watching. Hope you've caught up with some of the bus episodes as well. We had that Friday feeling, which was class, with Phil, Mark, and Liam the Punk Duck Warlord making a wee return. Good to see. And then on Sunday, we had David and Phil back on the Blether. We had Regan popping in as he pleases, as he kind of tends to do. We'll never forget when he did the off-camera roll the other week. And we did the a 2-hour, 10-minute belter of an episode of PMP yesterday as the vodkas flowed, Jonathan. It was brilliant fun. We'll do all that good stuff and we'll get into your nonsense at the start, which I'll kid on that I'm laughing at because I'm polite that way. Take a leaf out your brother's book, please. But yes, all that good stuff means give us a like, give us a share, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell button, slag the hair, or what's left of it. Hey, Jonathan. If you want to become a member, like so many of you have, it's $1.99 a month. It is not mandatory. You know, the bus content is always free, but there is plenty of members out there who want to keep the wheels on the road, like Jim C, like Phil McGinley himself, like Martin Weir, like Pam, like Jim Dolan, and so many others. It's totally up to you. It's $1.99. It just helps keep you. Alistair Jack, Scott Howe, Warren's team talk. There's 3 more. Warren was on top form in the live chat yesterday. It was good. It was good to see Warren. And I hope you and the family are well. Anyway, Timmy Bing's already preempting it. Take it away.
Well, Russell, it's been quite the week of the knockout blows throughout the footballing planet. Last week, we seen Atletico deliver the final punch in Celtic's Champions League bid. However, yesterday it was Celtic's turn for retaliation as they were to hit Aberdeen for 6 of the best. It turns out Kyogo's lights were well and truly sparked out by Rubicic after a heinous assault on our Japanese wonder man. But going in to another international break, it's not a knockout punches that are being delivered. The judges' scorecards are in, and it is Celtic who are taking an 8-point lead out of this session. And let me tell you something now, Rangers appear to be on the ropes with a bloody nose in hand, and they look as if they are out of ideas, waiting for that bell as we go into another round. And in this next round of fixtures, you are about to see the annihilation of Rangers' title hopes as Brendan Rodgers and Celtic administer the final knockout blow. Let's get ready to rumble.
Oh, I love it. I love it, mate. I thought it was on mute during that. But that was very good, mate. Loved it. The knockout blow indeed. Interesting at the weekend because I think when I look back, I was caught up in it all yesterday a wee bit as well, and rightfully so, because I think first and foremost the performance we can talk about in isolation, but then what I want to do is the contrasting and comparing. Now it's Monday. We did 2 hours of salivating and revaluing the players all at 20 million each again, you know, as you do after a 6-0 win in the league. But I do think, you know, just to temper it a wee bit, you know, it's on the back of a 6-0 defeat in Europe. Are we in a situation where the domestic bliss blanket is just too cosy for us all to handle, and we just would rather be under that than actually face our fears in Europe and actually make a challenge? I'll never agree to just accepting defeat. I think Celtic should always be trying to compete, and I think when they've got tools there that they don't use in Europe, it frustrates me even more. But if they do enough for the domestic bliss coziness, as it were, then maybe that is enough. But what was your sort of your takeaways for yesterday's 6-0 win. What was it that grabbed you?
Well, I thought it was a very impressive response after what happened in Europe. I thought there was a lot of good performances. Intensity-wise was definitely up there with the best that I've seen from Celtic. This season. Yang, I think, was one of the standout performers. It was good to see him really grab hold of that jersey. He was giving that boy McKenzie a torrid time. Every time he got on the ball, you felt he was going to go past him and make something happen. Palmer's, equally as good on the other side. There was a lot of good performances really throughout the team. You'd be struggling to pick a poor one. Obviously getting his goals later on in the game, I think, will be a massive confidence boost as well. And really, there was very little to complain about. It was really an all-round top performance from Celtic, albeit, you're playing Aberdeen, who are off the back of their own European travels on Thursday night. So you'd have to take these sort of things into consideration. But when you break it down into isolation, it was the perfect tonic for what we were needing, particularly after what had happened earlier on in the day with Rangers trying to put a little bit of pressure on us, that we were able to bounce back so comfortably, by having to go on second. And, I just kind of feel at the moment Celtic are beginning to click into that sort of gear that they know how to do domestically at this time of the year. And I think, with the fixtures looking the way they're going after the international break, it seems like it's going to be an ultimate opportunity here for Celtic to really try and stamp a hold on this title race and really put it to bed by the time we get to the new year, which I think they will do based on performances like Sunday.
Well, yeah, Sunday, if that's going to be the blueprint for what is the more favourable, you could say, second sort of round of fixtures that Celtic now have, because they've navigated the more difficult ones. It is interesting to think that if we're clicking into gear now and we didn't then, and you gave us the toughest games, that domestic bliss cosy blanket that we wear, no wonder we like it. It is cosy. I like it too. I thought there was loads of real plus points. I was talking with Terry. I like the attitude. I thought it was when you see in 99 minutes, 30 seconds, and it's 2-3 players closing down the Aberdeen backline winning the ball. When you consider the fact our last 3 goals are scored in the last 15 minutes of play, something like that.
It's 3 in stoppage time roughly, I think. So
it was 3 in stoppage time. Do you know what I mean? I think when you look at that tells you, a lot of superlatives that is that how you say that word? But you know what I mean? Like a lot of the descriptive words that Angie's team would get, I would like to think it can be folded and then fawned over for this Celtic team as well when they're doing it under Brendan, because I just thought that looked like the message is getting across, the penny is dropping, and we can't now keep saying we never stop and all that stuff. But it was an example of that attitude. That got a lot of traction before. If you've seen Angie's teams doing that high press, even when the game was clear. Actually, quite often under Postecoglou, and I always do the comparison because I'm a broken record. But I mean, a lot of it was his teams actually kind of. I used to always think drop down the gears as the game came to a finish. It was usually the first half we'd blow someone away, and then the second half, the job was done. We knew the job was done after 15 minutes. I think me and Teddy discussed yesterday. And to be honest, I thought Celtic were, to use another word from the previous era, relentless. That encourages me to see Celtic now looking like a group of players that have maybe got over their manager. And I know O'Reilly maybe got over him quite easily, for an example. I know Giakoumakis was speaking last week. I don't think he particularly liked the manager. But I think a lot of them are very much on page with Angie's sort of viewpoints, strategy, and game plan for Celtic. And I think for a lot of them, it was difficult. Whoever was going to be the next manager, for them to instantly adapt to their methods. I thought they looked like they were playing for the manager yesterday. And the backdrop wasn't great going into yesterday's game. Let's get that clear. We will talk about the comparisons with Europe in a wee bit. But notwithstanding that, going into it on the back of a 6-0 defeat isn't easy. Going on the back of it with a Green Brigade, or 267 of them banned, going out with the other supporters club, the boys, or something like that, they're not even attending fixtures. They did another impressive statement. That backdrop also can lead to difficulty, Jonathan, and absolutely navigated superbly. Biggest win of the season in the league. Looking good. I think that's all it got to be factored into how impressive a display it was yesterday afternoon.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was plenty of pitfalls, there. I think you've got to look at it as well. You have the opposition you're playing is, one of the better teams in Scotland, as well. Aberdeen and no mugs. Granted, their form after European games hasn't been very good, but, they're in a cup final already this season. They're consistently finished third in the league for donkey's years, more often than not. So you've got to take that into account. There is mitigating factors, that Celtic have to navigate, as well, such as, a European hangover. It can be a bit harder when you've had to put in the effort and, taking the sort of beating that we took, midweek against Atletico Madrid on the Tuesday night. Has got to be weighing on the players a little bit going into the game against Aberdeen, and it doesn't take much from a momentum to start building either way, and if Celtic had dropped points, so then all of a sudden there is a bit of momentum going in the trend that we don't want it to be going down. And, we managed that completely and utterly convincingly to make sure that didn't happen. And, when you're talking about the fans as well, it obviously does dilute the atmosphere slightly without having the Green Brigade in there. It was a little bit flatter, but I think that's natural as well when the games are on a Sunday. To be honest with you, I think particularly after what happened in Europe, it's natural for Celtic Park to be a little bit flatter on those such occasions. But again, the team got the supporters on their feet with the performance they put in to make sure that it wasn't going to be a flat afternoon at Celtic Park, like quite often can be the case, after a European performance. And I just think at the moment what we're beginning to see is a team that is really beginning to understand what Brendan's wanting to do. That was a lot more vintage Brendan Rodgers, shall we say, much more of the Brendan of old of Celtic from the first time around that performance. Probably perhaps the closest I think we've seen to that from what we've seen so far this season of what Brendan had, at his peaks. Last year in terms of performances, last time he was in the job. So there's a lot to be positive about going forward into this international break. And now he's obviously got a couple of weeks there with some of the players that won't be called up for international football to really hone their skills again. Also gives Brendan an opportunity to start planning for what he's wanting to do over the next round of fixtures. I mean, obviously Europe being the disappointment, I think, if we're reviewing the last batch of games that we've played, but in terms of the league, he's barely put a foot wrong, if we're being perfectly honest. And with the fixtures coming up the way they are, it's hard to see anything other than bigger wins coming for Celtic along these next rounds of fixtures, and everything is just looking very encouraging from a domestic standpoint. It'll just be interesting to see exactly what we do with those remaining European games, and with that group now looking almost dead and buried. But a lot to look forward to as a Celtic fan over the next few games.
Yeah, there's a lot to look forward to, but you've touched on Europe. So I think it's a conversation that has to happen. I don't like getting to a situation where it becomes just too easy just to sort of... I want the team, right, just to be hypocritical, I want the team to be able to take a defeat like they got in midweek and not be hung over by it, if you like, come the next domestic fixture. I think that shows a decent amount of mental strength. I also thought they showed a lot of mental weakness midweek though in Europe, where I think they did, I'm not going to say chucked it, but they definitely felt beaten way before the 90th minute. They played like a beaten team. And now, whilst you might be acutely aware that you are not going to get a point out of that game, you might not even get a goal, it's important that you don't... Giving up's too much, but do you know what I mean? Like, don't drop off the level that you're expected to play at for the full 90 minutes every time you put on a Celtic shirt, just because you know the game's a bogey. Now, though, when you look at the contrasting and comparing of our two most recent results, how deflating the 6-0 defeat was. I wasn't even deflated, I was angry. But then you see the 6-0 domestic win. Is there an argument many will want to make? I don't necessarily subscribe to it, but I'll put it out there. Is there an argument that the drop off between the domestic fixtures and the Europe one is now just too big a chasm, too big a gulf for Celtic to try and clamber over a period of just 6 group games in Europe? Is the golfing standard that big, that wide, that when we try and go from an Atletico Madrid to an Aberdeen, it's just, we're just playing different sports almost, Is it that big? Or whether it is that big or not, I suppose where I get frustrated would be, are Celtic doing enough themselves to bridge that gap? Now, they can't change the opposition in either competition. It's the luck of the draw in Europe. Obviously, depending on seeding, so you're always going to play some form of at least one or two elite teams if you're in the Champions League. And domestically, it's always going to be a minimum of 10, normally 11 of the same teams you played the year before. They're almost all of them kind of just sit plain sailing and are happy just to, to play it safe and stay in that league. And the standard doesn't really improve or evolve. That doesn't mean our product in the park can't be better. And we had the tools to do that. So I find myself a bit torn. I get the competitive aspect of it. But if we only look at ourselves, could Celtic do more to be bridging that gap? Because there is obviously, as I say, a chasm. Is that not what you say to me, Bing? He's like, What is a chasm? He spelled that. It's a gap, mate. Could you not follow the thread of conversation I was making out? Fucking hell, we'll keep it simple. But to bridge that gap, and it is an almighty one, we need to help ourselves a wee bit more as well. But I do take on board from a sporting level, it does seem that the gap is massive.
No, there's no two ways about it. It's huge when you're looking at domestic football in Scotland compared to what you're going to go up against in Europe. And as part of the problem is that Celtic, especially defensively, are just not going to get tested, in domestic home turf the same way that they will, in Europe. It's just not going to happen. Aberdeen are one of the better teams in the league, and to be fair, they put in a few credible performances in Europe themselves this season. But you're finding out when they're coming back into their domestic realms that even they're struggling to manage to play in the two competitions, and that would be the case for any Scottish team outside of Celtic or Rangers. They don't have the squads to even manage it. And when you're looking at it from our point of view, yes, we could do with being tested a bit more defensively. Yes, we could do with probably being in more challenging fixtures more regularly, because then that helps us get over dealing with situations like what happens in Madrid when you go down to 10 men and you're losing a match, because that doesn't happen very often, in Scottish football whatsoever. So there's not as much adversity that Celtic have to overcome in that sense. Going forward, they're still obviously able to pick teams off at will in Scotland. I do think they can do more to try and improve and make themselves a better team in terms of European football. But again, that goes back to the age-old argument that we seem to have almost every week in terms of what we do with our transfer business. And I think everybody knows that the transfer business just was nowhere near good enough in the summer. It came back to bite us on the arse in terms of European performances. I think that's the number one reason why it hasn't gone the way we wanted it to at all, because it was a favourable draw again this year, I felt, in Europe, considering sometimes you could end up getting a draw. Like, for example, the group Newcastle's in. If we're in a group like that, you hold your hands up and you say, like, that draws a bogey. There's very little that you can do with that. You might be able to give somebody a nosebleed, but it's unlikely you're going to finish anywhere but bottom. Whereas in this group, there was definitely a real possibility of at least challenging for third, if not second. And for the second year in a row, Celtic haven't been able to really make a fist of that. And it looks as if the group is going to peter out, and we're probably going to end up playing our final game without having a mathematical chance of finishing anywhere but fourth. And that shouldn't be happening. Celtic should be in a position where they are at least able to compete for third in a group that they've been drawn into there. So the board, the club, management, everybody has to have a look at that and think, how can we try and make sure that if we're in the Champions League again next season, which isn't a given, I think, with the coefficients the way they are, I think the Turkish clubs could still potentially overtake us. It's how do we overcome that? Because you've got to remember, Russell, as well, there is teams of similar levels to Celtic that are still getting results in Europe. I think Copenhagen's home record, for example, is ridiculous in the Champions League. They've barely lost any at home at that level. And they even got a big win over, fair enough, not the best Man United team, but I wouldn't be fancy Celtic.
It's still a 500 million United team, right?
It's still, yeah. I mean, we would be using that argument if Man United played us and bleached us that they just spent too much money. But that does show it can be done, and that other clubs of a similar level to Celtic are able to make it happen. So if it's a case that we need to start thinking a bit more about what are these clubs doing that we aren't, then I'm welcome to having those discussions, as well, because I think Celtic have almost got themselves, they've pretty much completed Scottish football, and they've got themselves comfortable with the fact that they know how to dominate domestically, and they've done it, for over a decade, give or take. Apart from that one freak season in COVID, Celtic have had their own way in the league, and they know how to get the job done. So they need to find a way to then bridge the gap from not just being able to be successful domestically, but also put in a real fight in Europe, because you only even have to look across the city to know that Rangers are able to put up a fight in Europe, albeit at the Europa League level, but that's somewhere Celtic even struggle at once they get out of the groups. That Celtic need to actually find a way to start bridging that gap in Europe. And that starts with recruitment. It starts by looking at other clubs of a similar level. And it also just means that we're going to have to find ways to get the best out of the players we have available. And I think, to be fair to Brendan, I think he has tried tactically, and he hasn't done too bad in a lot of the games with his tactics. But again, he might just need to look at tactical tweaks depending on the fixtures as well. But there's a lot of things to solve in terms of the puzzles there, Russell. And I don't really know exactly how quick or easy a fix this would be for us to bridge that gap.
Well, bridging the gap is an interesting one. And I think that's what's the most important thing. If you make no effort to bridge the gap, then the gap will always remain the same or actually increase. Now, people seem to want to talk about, well, it'd be throwing money. Well, one of the counter arguments, we're saying everyone, but there is a counter argument. You'd be throwing money at something you might end up finishing fourth, like Newcastle, like they might in their group, and they've spent hundreds of millions. Man United might not qualify. Things like this. I get that, but I don't understand what then the other purpose of these funds are for. Funds are there to put out the best possible version of Celtic on the pitch. I think naturally it gives you a better chance. I think it can turn a 60-minute performance in Europe into a 90-minute one. I'm not saying you'll get 6 90-minute brilliant performances in Europe, but we seem to be getting flash in the pans 2 out of 3 group games where we were great for an hour. Without that next level of investment, you might be able to turn these odd 60-minute performances into full 90-minute ones, or in modern day context, 115 minutes. But I do admit that the win at the weekend then gives you that satisfaction, because we are bound by the league that we're in. And when you watch Rangers getting the penalties that they're going to get, one of them they shouldn't have got, one of them they should, but they always get both anyway. If there's a decision to be made, they'll get it in their favour. It adds that sort of rivalry, sort of, chest out, fuck yous, sort of vibe that you can't help but have on Sunday when we were going to absolutely smash Aberdeen 6-0, when maybe they thought the likes of Chris Boyd et al. Were all sitting there thinking, well, they struggled midweek, they've phoned out with the fans, the mood music isn't great, read the room, Celtic might, they might drop points here, this could be a bit of a banana skin. And instead it was like quite a defiant performance, and that's brilliant in the domestic front. And I can't help but myself think there's a reason I did 2 hours 10 minutes with Terry yesterday, because you do get that real satisfaction feeling. I don't dispute any of that. The European thing, though, that does not mean you just focus on the ones that overcome obstacles that are put out in front of you, because that to me is like if you were playing a computer game, for example, but you're always just it's like me playing Championship Manager still, because I know I'm good at it. Although the videos from this podcast 2 years ago might suggest differently. But in general, it's because I know it's safe. I know I'm going to win eventually. I know each career, no matter what team I go, I'm going to end up doing brilliant at it. It's a safe bet. If I play FIFA 23, I'm launching my controller at the wall like a child. So I don't bother playing these games. Now, with that, Celtic can't afford to take such an immature perception of it, and fans shouldn't either, because it is immature. It's we're not good enough for that, so I'm not even, I'm just not even taking part. I just don't want to play in it. I just want to play in the ones that can win, and then I'll dress it up as it's all because this is what we're all about. I can't go that far, albeit I do still take massive levels of satisfaction from the weekend there, when I thought those bastards would get fucking anything. They would get anything. Now we've got Aberdeen. We're on a wee bit, hiding to nothing here because the fans are all falling out. The bad result midweek. We go smash them, and I'm like, get it right round you. And there is a feeling of satisfaction out of that that's very addictive. But I want more. And the next level is Europe. And it's giving every opportunity you can to Celtic to do better in Europe. And if that doesn't mean they qualify, that doesn't mean you just give up and revert to type and go, see, tried it once, didn't work, we didn't qualify out the group. Did we play better? Did the team look like it was doing better? Was there even 2 assets you could have sold the summer after it than 1? These are all factors. So when does the mindset change for the board, who I think play on the fact the fans get that satisfaction level of being better than their rivals? And because it's such a long period between us exiting Europe and then winning the trophies in the come near the summer, that the fans' mood level's so high again, without all that pest, that sort of, that pest that is Europe, being in the way of their thinking. Is it something that we need to try and keep at the forefront of our minds, even once we exit the tournament, and try and keep ramming that pressure home? Because I do feel that the domestic bliss cozy blanket is one that suits too many, and they need to get in the cold shower and face reality. We're going to be in Europe every year. Let's make a fucking fist of it.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think particularly the younger generation of fans, they've probably kind of grown up just being conditioned with how things have went domestically, and this is pretty much what they're used to, seeing Celtic win all the time, and they maybe do think Europe is a bridge too far for Celtic to try and overcome. Celtic's last European knockout stage win was back in 2004. So, you're talking anyone born, late 90s, early 90s, they've not really going to have any memory of Celtic winning a knockout tie in Europe. So, you've got people that are, in their early 20s now that have pretty much watched Celtic always, by and large, not make big inroads in European competition. And that is something that we do need to try and shift. And I think there is that now acceptance because of the fact we are completely the dominant team in Scotland, that we're quite comfortable in that spot, and we do take our eyes off Europe once we go out of it and just focus on being better than Rangers, which is extremely satisfying, being better than Rangers. Don't get me wrong, everybody enjoys that when the time comes around, and nobody will enjoy it.
100%, mate.
If it goes the way I think it goes over the next few weeks, and Celtic do start to pull away in the league, and they do end up getting the win in the derby around Christmas time, then everyone's probably going to forget about Europe, and that is probably where the argument does then need to come back into full effect in January, because potentially, if this plays out the way I think it does, I think Celtic will be, double digits. I think they'll be in front in the league by that point. Rangers might still have games in hand, but I think it'll be double digits by the time we break up for winter, and the league will be pretty much been called. And then you've got the January window, where really you're spending the second half of the season, if it goes that way, where the Scottish Cup is then your only real asset that's left up for contention for the rest of the season. And you've got to start looking and thinking, well, is this all Celtic can do, is, win the league titles in Scotland and pick up the domestic trophies? Is there more that Celtic can be doing? Can we be better than this? And if you're asking me the question, the one person you'd want in the Celtic dugout who would ask those questions is a manager like Brendan Rodgers, because he's all about improving every aspect of the club. You only have to look at his first term here. He transformed the Celtic team that were not, firing on all cylinders domestically. Fair enough, they were getting the job done in the league. But it was Brendan Rodgers who came in and started delivering treble after treble after treble.
It's Brendan's fucking fault.
Brendan's pretty much got us into this way of thinking that this is cushy, and we almost now are at a point where we actually take a treble for granted, and that's just because of how successful we've been at winning them over the past 7-8 years. So I think there is an element of that, and Brendan Rodgers the first time changed how we approach domestic competition. I think this time Brendan Rodgers wants to change how we approach European competition. That's the main carrot that's been dangled for him anyway, even though the summer window didn't go the way he wanted it to, which, as we've discussed, he probably should have done more as well in the summer. There's absolutely no doubt.
Go on.
The main reason he's came back, though, is because he's chasing that European dream now. He wants to change the fundamentals of the club to being a team that challenges in Europe, because if you look at it domestically, he already made those changes years ago, and they're still active to this day. Celtic are still scooping up trebles. They did it last season. Fair enough, they won't this year. Every chance they'll win a double, though. I mean, not many will back against us winning a double.
Sure.
So he's gonna be looking now at Europe and thinking, okay, I've managed to suss out domestic bliss the first time around. How do I find a way to get this club to properly believe that they are a European elite club that belong on the big stage in the Champions League, in the premier competition of European football? And that's the conundrum I think Brendan is desperate to try and solve to enhance his legacy even more. And, if we're wanting to make those sort of improvements, as I say, we couldn't ask for a better manager to be in the dugout to try and do that.
Absolutely. The judge comes in. I'll happily debate with the judge my point on this on Thursday. He says he doesn't get the pretense that because we prioritise the league that we are somehow under a comfort blanket. We are built as a club on this comfort blanket. Well, I don't know on that. I think Celtic's biggest story in their history that they talk about, and the reason the stars above the stadium is the European Cup win. My opinion. I think 9 in a row, you could probably argue, is second to that, but certainly not above it. So the biggest story in Celtic's history, and something that they milk more than any other, is the fact we've won the big cup in Europe. So I don't think the club's built on that comfort blanket. I think it's very, very easy to just want domestic success because the chances are so high you'll get it. And I think it's very easy then to become or use an attitude of apathy towards Europe when you know the chances are very slim in it. Whereas I think the club could do more to believe that we've got an opportunity to get results, whether it be in the Europa League, which we failed to do as well, may I add, not just the Champions League, but to just be Celtic, who's won the big cup, and then start treating this like, we're built on domestic success, so whatever happens is a golden nugget. It may well be a golden nugget. But to get the golden nugget, I'd like to see the club absolutely go for it. And not in a way that's reckless, not in the way that jeopardises the club's future, which Mark agrees with me on several aspects of that it doesn't need to be such a, we can only spend 2 million on a player because we don't want to end up dead. There's a massive gulf for that, and the accounts prove Celtic have not tried to compete in Europe. Now, whether Celtic would get better point tallies, better results, remains to be seen. But if I knew they'd use the tools that they've got in front of them, I think then I might even be more relaxed about the defeats I see. I might be able to go, do you know what? We've given it a go. What more could we do? See if I could say, what more could we do after a European game? That squad is as good as Celtic could produce in all competitions. We're going to win all the domestic ones, or we'll win 2 this year. And Europe, that was as good a squad as we could have built for Europe. And do you know what? We still went out bottom. I'm okay with that. That's not where Celtic are. That's why I cannot abide apathy towards something that we're not giving our all in. We give our all domestically. It is a very, very nice place to be, being the dominant force in Scotland. And obviously that is, as I said at the very start, what you're bound by, the domestic league that you're in, no matter what league that is. If you're in that league, that is what you're bound by. But in Europe, do not give up when you don't need to give up. There are tools there that Celtic are not using that would be fascinating to see if they were used. And I'm talking about money here. I'm talking about strategy to make in the recruitment drive that, for whatever reason, has remained, 1 out of 10 will get us 20 million. We make all our money back on the 9 duds that are not 9 duds. You know what I mean? Duds is a bit harsh, but the ones that won't make it, we get all our money back on them, and then we hedge our bets on another 10 signings. We can change that strategy. That recruitment drive can change. It can be 2 or 3 more heavily scouted youngsters that come in that have been proper, like the chances of their success rate are higher than the likes of a Kwon who comes in. I don't know if they flipped a coin to sign him. Nobody knows. And then sprinkle that with a couple of guys you know can come in at that first team and affect it. Look at Palma as being the prime example. Palma came not straight from South America, but after 2 years in Greece. Yes, are we fortunate he wasn't at Olympiacos, Panathinaikos, one of the bigger clubs? Fair enough, maybe we were. But he had already got a bit of pedigree from a league similar to ours. And his next step was Celtic. But it wasn't a massive step Palma was making up to Celtic. It was a smaller step. And funnily enough, He's got 9 goal contributions in 8 games. Didn't sign enough Palmers in the summer. Signed too many projects for me. These are issues that we can change and we can address and have your domestic bliss and be wrapped all around in that, but also make more of a fista in Europe. And if that means the same outcome in Europe than what we've currently got, would that not more palatable to you? Because it is to me, being able to say, do you know what? What more could the team have done? Then you start getting on to the football stuff and you start critiquing player performance, managerial decisions. That's far more fun than going, well, the manager's got one arm tied behind his back with the team that he's picked and the personnel he can choose from. And that's why he said to use that tactic. That fucking annoys me.
Yeah, I think it's one that's going to be it's going to be interesting over the next 12 months, I would say, to see how this plays out, because I suspect Brendan Rodgers will have a very similar opinion to yourself on what he wants to do with the club. In terms of Europe, I think Brendan already knows the summer was a disaster in terms of the transfer window. Obviously, we'll find out if he is now going to challenge that come the next window when it's open in January and, again in the summer. I'm a bit concerned with the board as to whether or not they are going to give him the free rein to actually do what they want to do. I think there could be a clash coming there. I would suspect the January window will probably see the board playing their usual card, that it's difficult to get players in that will meet the criteria that wants. And I think that I wouldn't be surprised if the January window ends up being a bit underwhelming, particularly if no miracle happens in the last 2 Champions League games and Celtic somehow managed to finish third, because by all accounts it looks like they're out. I think that the board might just decide to keep that league title comfort blanket wrapped comfortably around them and keep their money in their jar rather than actually spending it, because they'll probably be in a position that if things go the way that we're all hoping and expecting to happen over the next few months, that Celtic will be in a very strong position in the league come January. And then really the January window for the board would be more looking at how do we improve the squad to really win the Scottish Cup and see off the league title challenge. And for them...
Isn't it so clever that, right? Isn't it so clever to have 2 windows in a year and your argument, you can switch around to summer one to suit them. And they're doing it very well. They're convincing people. That's the sad bit. That's the saddest bit. It's so transparent how they do it. Let's look at their 2 narratives for the summer, and then we'll talk about that January one. So the summer narrative was always, well, we couldn't go all in for that player because what if we didn't qualify for the Champions League and make that group stage money? Now it's we make the group stage money, and of course, even our own will say, but the gulf's too big, we can't compete there anyway. So, what if we'd spent more of that money and still finish bottom of the group? Then what? Then we've just paid loads of money that we didn't need to because it was the same outcome. Then you get to January and you're out of Europe and they go, well, there's no point tooling up now, Why don't we sign a guy that might be able to have settled in by the summer? Fans don't work like that. See, if you've not hit the ground running at Celtic, they never go, oh, I'm glad to give him that 6 months. It'll take very rare occasions to see a player who's not made a big impact in their first 6 months to be given a second pre-season, if you like, from the supporters. What I will say is, when it comes to the January window, though, there's no point in over-tooling up. There's only domestic success. We're doing okay, are we not? Do you not think we're doing well domestically right now? It's so clever how they've got the 2 windows tied up. These narratives are controlling narratives. You are not expanding your mind when it comes to being a Celtic fan if you cannot see what that board are so cleverly doing and are conditioning generation after generation of fan to the point I become 50, 60 years old. Hopefully there'll still be some form of bus at that point. Fuck knows how it will be. Some hologram of my phone I'll be doing it from. Do you know what I mean? Fuck knows. But I'll look like I'm in the past. I probably already do. But it'll look like, harken back to years that are impossible. That's where they're phasing this football club out to. Right in front of your eyes right now. You have to react. And the one thing that fucks me off the most is Brendan, to me, was the weapon that was coming in to shake things up again. I put all my eggs in the basket with it, and I ended up with all those eggs on my face because he didn't man up. He did not do what was necessary for me as a Celtic manager with a bit of poise, with a bit of ambition. That's what I wanted to fucking see. And he is culpable for that summer not, basically, as far as I'm concerned, setting off as he meant to go on. That we should have been kicking off a new era of you're going to get a fright here. Because I've came back for a reason. I couldn't get my head around it. If there was any other reason he was back without change, I just could not get my head around it.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to really understand.
That's so annoying.
It's hard to understand exactly the reasoning as to why he's came back. If Europe isn't the sort of end goal for him. Fair enough, I get he perhaps wanted to make amends for how he departed the last time, but I just can't see Brendan Rodgers coming back in with one part of the ego that he has, and two, the vision that he's always had for this football club, being content with coming in and just picking up a few more league trophies before riding back off into the sunset, because that's not really enhancing what he's already done on his CV the first time around. He's already lost his record in terms of winning every domestic trophy. And that was at a very early hurdle this time around. So for me, he's got to be looking at this and thinking European football, because he would have been acutely aware, Russell, when he came in.
Stop stealing my part. Get away.
Well, you like it. You like it when I put your wee lines in. I'm throwing you a bone. Didn't pretend you didn't like it. Didn't pretend you didn't like it. But yeah, he's acutely aware that I think that he was probably unlikely to win treble after treble after treble again this time around. The law of averages, where he was eventually going to come unstuck in a cup match somewhere along the line. It's impossible to navigate them all the time. There's always going to be a night where you have an off day in the cup competitions, and that just so happened to be this season at Kilmarnock. But there's absolutely no chance for me that he's came back in here thinking all I want to be doing this time around at Celtic is doing exactly the same as what I did the first time around. And obviously, whilst that's important to him, don't get me wrong, to make sure he still stays in front domestically, he wants to build a legacy. And he knows domestically, what can he really achieve domestically at this point that's going to already enhance his reputation? He's already won a treble. Celtic are nowhere near winning 10 league titles in a row at this moment in time, unless Brendan decides he's hanging around for an extended period of time, because that's really the only other holy grail that Celtic have left to conquer in Scotland.
I want your thoughts on the window theory as well. I know we're nearing that sudden death time, but I want your thoughts on my narrative of the controlling of the narrative, if you like, the conditioning of generations of fans over how they navigate these two transfer windows so cleverly to make us think we couldn't do more.
Yeah, I think when you're looking at the board, they are clever in that way. They know how to position things in a way that a lot of fans will agree with them, in terms of how they go about stuff like that. Some we were told for years when we had those qualifiers, and you could kind of actually almost see the argument in a lot of ways. There were a lot of Celtic fans that would have agreed with that of, well, let's not be too overzealous with our money in case it backfires and we don't get through. So they probably had a lot of fans buying in to that narrative. And now that we are qualified, as soon as we win the league championship, I think a lot of people are now at a point where they're fed up of European football because they don't feel Celtic can make a dent in it. And again, that plays into the board's hands in the summer window.
Or in some cases, it's all they know.
Yeah, well, it could be either or, depending on what age demographic I think you're looking at. I think, guys perhaps like Marc are maybe a bit more fed up because Celtic haven't made a dent in Europe. And, from his point of view, he maybe looks at it and thinks the club aren't trying, so why should the fans bother going to these sorts of games if the club aren't making the effort? I think a lot of older fans that have been, to see Celtic and have success in Europe will have a similar opinion. However, I think when you're looking at the younger generation of fans, they're probably going to be, none the wiser to what, it's like. It feels like to actually be able to get deep into European competition and get a lot of big results and, really have that run, because there are moments that you do remember extremely fondly. I mean, the UEFA Cup run is one of the most memorable moments of my childhood.
Exactly. I mean, we didn't win anything then, and yet you would go on that run tomorrow, mate. I would go on that run tomorrow. Honestly, I just don't get it. I mean, even under Strachan, I look at the last 16 qualifications, those last-minute goals. Those memories they stand out so much more to me than when we got a late goal against Motherwell. Like, for example, if you were to rank Scott McDonald against Milan, right, and the fan run on the pitch, quite a topical subject, but like Ndida does the dive over, but we beat AC Milan the last minute, and that team, we talked about the gap earlier, you go through that team, mate, and look at ours. I don't know if the gap's any bigger or not, like, to be honest, because the levels are just crazy. But those memories stand out more to me than what beating Aberdeen or Motherwell 4-3 will. It's just the way it is for me personally. The importance at the time of the domestic ones, I take on board, and I can still take myself to the space where those results happened and remember them vividly. But the other ones are just, for me, they were another level. Do you know what I mean? Like, they were, and that was against the grain a bit then, but we also see once we even downgraded under Strachan, it didn't seem to be as much of a white flag waving exercise. We still brought in a PSV Eindhoven striker who was a Dutch international. We still brought in Italy's most capped ever under 21 international who cost Milan £10 million. Not saying Donati set the heather alight, but there was examples, Nakamura, of players coming in at peak ages as well, 25 to 27, that were going to impact the first team. We don't do any of that now. We don't sign 27, 28-year-olds anymore. And guess who we have? Kyogo 2 years ago. And look at the impact he's had in the team. Funny that. That's what the memories I want back. It's never going to be about, do you think we might win it this year? You might win the European Cup this year. Behave. But what we could do is give the next generation, firstly, memories, secondly, evidence that this club can go on.
Yeah, I think it's one of those ones where we are needing some big European results to get fans, particularly that haven't seen much success in European football, believing that this club actually belongs at that table, because that almost feels where we're at. We almost feel a bit sheepish when we're actually at the big boys table at the moment, and we can't wait to get away from it because we're just overawed by the whole occasion. And that is something that we do need to address it and look at, because, you're right, even under Strachan, with those performances, that AC Milan game, AC Milan were champions of Europe back then. That's just one such example. And, Celtic didn't have the strongest of teams. They had the quality in it. But, Gary Calder and Stephen McManus at centre-back pair, and you wouldn't turn around and say they're brilliant. You wouldn't turn around and say that's any better than what we have nowadays at the back. So it can definitely be done. It just needs to be a massive shift, both in mindset, belief and strategy from the clubs, because like I went back to earlier on, other clubs of a similar level to Celtic are still finding ways to make things happen in Europe. And we just have to find a way to learn from that and actually progress ourselves, because these memories are something that do live with you for a lot longer than the last minute goals in the league. Whilst they're obviously enjoyable at the time, you couldn't go through every season and pick out every game, I don't think, that we'd won late, or even, remember it all particularly well. When Phil comes on and does sudden death, he asks us on a game from like the 13-14 league season, and it's a domestic game, we'll probably struggle. If he was to ask us a game, like Celtic versus Barcelona under Lenny, then we're probably going to do all right. So there is definitely...
That's a great example. That just makes sense, what you're saying there. It just makes total sense.
Yeah, and it's one of those ones that, those things are important. Winning the domestic trophies is obviously important as well, but you need to be able to have these moments in Europe. For me, that's what Celtic are all about. Celtic historically are the first British club to win the European Cup. They have made inroads in Europe. They did have one of the best home records in the Champions League period for a while in the 2000s. And we need to try and find a way to get ourselves back to being able to get those sorts of results. And that is down to the board and Brendan Rodgers to work out. But I think Brendan and the board are on a collision course on that front, because I cannot see Brendan Rodgers, after what happened in the summer, being quite as much of a pushover when the next window opens, and particularly when that summer one opens, if we're back dining at the big boys table.
Well, dining at the big boys table, one can dream. Very quickly as well, because being Terry kind of looking back at the conversation yesterday, I've looked at the replay a few more times, the Kyogo one. I just want your thoughts on that, because me and Terry were kind of, I don't think it was a red card. And I was watching it wearing my cozy blanket, Jonathan. I was happy with everything yesterday. We won 6-0. I was nice and cozy in my domestic bliss blanket. I look back at it today and I think, fuck, at the end of the day, he's endangered an opponent massively. If that's the follow through that you see, for example, that crazy Spurs Chelsea game last Monday, if you actually remember, the red card that was given, for the Spurs defender, I think he could have been sent off before that. But he actually wins the ball, but it's his follow through.
Yeah,
because he's follow through and endangers an opponent.
Studs.
Now that header, yes, he wins the header, but when you watch, obviously Twitter's awash with it more today. We're obviously on only half an hour after the game. I admit I hadn't given it as much views as what I have now. You watch that, yes, he wins the header, but because he's going at such pace, that falls through his head's knocked out Kyogo in midair. Kyogo actually lands really dangerously as well. The way he lands is really dangerous. And that, to me, has to be a red card.
It's an interesting one. I think when you're looking at how it happens, especially with Kyogo, it's because with him being a bit smaller, I think it looks even worse because he's properly taken a clattering. And if it had been somebody like it probably wouldn't look. Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of the argument as to why it could be a red card, is because of the force that goes in after the ball is cleared, and you see that quite regularly when it's a 2-footed lunge, for example. You can quite comfortably sometimes get the ball with them. But if it has that sort of scissors-like motion where you're endangering an opponent, then 9 times out of 10 you get sent off in the modern game for that. Probably a bit more unusual to see a red card for an instance like that. It's not something we really see come up as often. I'm kind of swithering with it. I mean, I can see the argument as to why it'd be a red. I can kind of see why the referees decided to err on the side of caution and only book them. I think when VAR, if you're expecting that to get involved, I think they were always going to go with the referee's decision. I think they're going to turn around and say he's cleanly took the ball. I think it's going to be the first argument. And you've got to remember, they're making this call without the benefit of having 24 hours more to review it.
Yeah, but they've got the benefit of all the replays and it's their job.
Yeah, they do have the benefit of the replays, but I think when they're looking at that, they've probably thought he's got the ball and it's just a little bit of an
untidy. But there's a follow-through. There's not a little bit, though. There's not a little bit. You can't say there's a little bit. If you actually watch that replay in the still frames and you want to then do that slow, super slow motion, you see his head goes through the ball and then through Kyogo's head, essentially, when he's landing there. I watched it back today and thought, fuck, I played that down yesterday. I felt a wee bit foolish about that, And I was like, fuck, that's the exact equivalent of going in, studs up, winning the ball cleanly, and then taking the man out completely after it, recklessly, and endangering him. And that is what happened. When a player's knocked out unconscious in midair, which I'm not saying they'd have been completely aware of, not acutely or even completely aware of, at that time, I still think that's what the VAR's there to do. Do they still do? Someone could help me in the comment here, in the comments. Do they still do like the reflective, the after the event review where they could upgrade it? To me, that's an upgrade from a yellow to a red, and then everyone gets a bye. Everyone can get their pass.
I think if you get booked, you don't. I don't think they would look at it. If you
what a stupid fucking rule!
At the time. Yeah, I know.
Do you want to get the right decision or not, or should we just have a wee technicality in the way?
Yeah, I think if it's dealt with at the time, and obviously it was with the yellow card, I don't think they can go back and retrospectively look at it again. So I think that'll be that one pretty much put to bed on that front. So, yeah, I mean, I can see why it could have been a red card. Absolutely, I can absolutely see the argument for it, particularly with how he's gone down. And it's a pretty forceful challenge to say the least. But I think when you're seeing the fallout today, there's a lot of split opinions on it as well. So I can kind of understand why the referees and the VAR truck have possibly decided to err on the side of caution. But I do strongly suspect if Willie had decided that was a red card and had sent him off, that wouldn't have got overturned either. I think it's one of those ones that's a bit more muddied waters. But of course, from our point of view, we're going to look at that and want a red card.
I think anyone would be looking at a red card for that. I think it was, at the end of the day, it was excessive force, as they've said in the chat. It endangers an opponent. And the more you watch it, the worse it gets. So apologies yesterday when we did the PMP. I'm sure Terry's mind's probably changed as well. But we were just on the high of the result, cozy in the blanket, mate. That's how it goes. But here he comes. There he is, Big Phil.
All right.
Looking great, mate. What's happening?
Not much, man. Just back from the gym earlier on, funny enough. But
you were busy at the gym yesterday. Do you want to tell the viewers how many calories you burnt?
1,967, 1967.
Yeah, an appropriate number.
I added up all the calories at the end of the session. I was like, how appropriate, 1967. Brilliant. So I was delighted with that one. There was a sign there that it was meant to be. But yeah, I was there earlier on as well. But the fact you started half an hour later actually benefited me massively because I was running very late tonight. Very, very late. But no, thank you. But it's that time again. It's sudden death, guys. We're still playing this game, this stupid game, as Russell likes to call it every single week now.
Stupid game. But just, I was going to say as well, next, when's the 25th? Did you know, Jonathan, that Terry's over? You did know that.
Well, I thought he was coming over, but I didn't know if he was going to bother if he did get a ticket for the Motherwell game.
So we're not going to bother getting tickets.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to watch the game here, and we're going to set up PMP. I've got a couple of new stools. Don't know if I told you this. Yeah, a couple of nice breakfast bar stools, and we're going to get the camera set up. I don't know what I'm going to bounce it on. Going to get a big, long, tall tripod, and we're going to do it like in-house, mate. PMP. You'll be there. You're out with us, mate. Are you not?
Yes, I will be.
So the three of us will be doing PMP, and hopefully the microphone will be able to pick us all up, and we'll be totally winging it, but it could be pretty cool. That'll be happening. That'll be happening.
Well, as long as Terry's there, I'm there.
Oh, right, Brendan. You're getting beat just for that absolute terrible comment. That is embarrassing. Hope Terry's missed that. That is just cringe. I nearly played the closing credits there after you said that. I felt sick a wee bit.
Any reason not to do the quiz, Russell? Just stop pretending. Stop pretending it's anything else.
Oh my God. Yeah, we need to get this over with, guys. But yeah, currently the score, there's 6 points in it. 6 a very appropriate number right now. It seems to be doing now. But there's 6 points between Jonathan and Russell. It is 9-3. Yes, 9-3 just now after Celtic's wonderful 6 goals as well at the weekend. So yeah, we'll get started, guys. I'll just get the music going, and we're off to the races. Also, what do you think about? I'm now terrorising other people in the team on a Friday night with a quiz as well. So you
very good. I enjoyed
it.
I watched it live, mate. I was still working on Friday night, believe it or not. I don't know what the fuck's happening to me, man. I actually didn't work on Friday night, and I watched your show. I watched all 3 live. It was brilliant. And the quiz, it's a clever format, and the judge and David Logue, 2 esteemed contributors on the channel, neck and neck.
Yeah, they are indeed. So, but Mark says he'll come back on to redeem himself one day. So
it doesn't work like that, though. You need to get a league table organised, mate.
I'll get a league table organised.
Even I fancy my chances of beating those 2 score.
Right.
Could you imagine? Oh, the redneck.
So tonight, guys, we've got to get this over with because we are barreling down towards this finale of season 2. So it's quite close. So if you've got one hand on the trophy, you're almost there, mate. But it could still be a massive.
I've got the comfort blanket all dug out.
The comfort blanket on,
yeah. Why is it getting split into 2 again?
I was split into 2 just because it would just break up.
Because I was worried you'd be sight at it, Russell, and we might need to restart it halfway through the season.
I think it should just be 1 season, mate. I think it should just be 1 season. I'm happy. I can dig in, mate. I can dig in. He's a bottling bastard. I believe it. I believe I can still turn this round. I know those in the comments believe I can still turn it around as well.
They probably do, aye.
You are Delulu.
There's one season.
I'll keep you up to date in the comments, say it, because obviously you guys can't look at the comments during the...
I can't see the comments. No, I've got no comments up right now.
No worries.
No, trust me, I think I've definitely established that I've not got the comments up when I do this. I think I've proven that.
I know that. You're following the wrong comments.
So, Jonathan, you won the point last week. Do you want to go first or second?
I'll go first, Phil.
Not breaking any tradition. Okay, guys. So, tonight's question, there are 11 answers, so it's one of those ones where it could get really, really tough really quickly. And obviously at the weekend, guys, we saw Celtic hit Aberdeen for 6 goals. A team we are no strangers to giving a doing to. Good evening to Chris Boyd. Did you know that in season 99-2000, the John Barnes season, Celtic registered an incredible aggregate score of 25-1 against Aberdeen over 5 fixtures? There were 11 different goal scorers for Celtic in all those fixtures. That's who I'm looking for tonight, boys. And Russell's got a confident look on his face. He fancies it.
I just think you're trying to help me.
Yeah, I was going to say this is definitely more up his street than it's going to be.
I was being topical with what happened. I thought Aberdeen, we give them a bit of doing. And I remember that season where we absolutely ragdolled them.
Yeah, whatever, Phil. Whatever you want to say. We'll start with the king, Henrik Larsson.
Of course, he's a right answer. Of course. And I think Russell's also frozen as well, so that's another reason to try and get out of doing the quiz.
He'll want to do it now. This is right up his street.
And now the Gremlins are playing with him just as he's got a question that plays right into his favour. Oh, look at this. He's going
it's no meant to be for him. It's just no meant to be. I think I've won this 1-0. I think that was a wrong answer again. Sounded like something like Chip Charnley or something, I think he said, so that's wrong.
Oh, he's having a meal. Yeah, he's just frozen. He's just a bloody mess on my screen. Oh, now it's went to a black screen with a little circle spinning on it, and now he's disappeared completely.
And now he'll be back in a minute.
He'll be back in a moment.
Gives me more time to actually think of answers. This is what
I suppose so. Actually, it does. Yeah, it does. Give me that.
So he's going to be retaliating this straight back. He'll have about 7 or 8 of these off his head. To be fair, I'm going to be struggling a bit with this. I think. I'm just jotting down names, so. Yeah, it's probably a little bit before my time this season.
So it's quite a lot of ones that you'll
I vaguely remember watching one of these games. I think was there not a 7-0 one of these games?
There was a 5-0, a 6-0, a 7-0, and a 5-1.
Yeah, I think I've seen the highlights of the 7-0 before on that. Remember you used to have that Celtic TV on Sky? That was a crazy thing.
Yeah, that's
Sky
right.
TV had I used to play vintage Celtic game highlights.
Nice.
It's really good. I don't think it exists no more. Got rid of it.
Brown Warrior's going to try to tell us he's a way to check Google. Yeah, he probably is.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me. I'll just come
tactical freezing for me and Macintosh. Yes, that could be that.
Mind games. I think that's what it is, Phil. It's mind games.
Can you do that, Timmy Bing, for a laugh? Give John all the answers while he's away.
We already get accused of that anyway, Phil. That we secretly confer on the ancestors. Russell's definitely would not need anything more to fuel that narrative because he's a fan of that one. He is a fan of that one.
See, I've got conspiracies thrown at me every Monday night. You've thrown them already tonight as well, so I'm used to it now.
I mean, well, this question is definitely more up his street. You knew that when you fixed this.
No, I was just trying to think the question. It was topical, and obviously with the Aberdeen, the comment that Chris Boyd made about is obviously they always lie down to us. I did think about that season where we did absolutely ragdoll them and thought, you know what? Thought we had a lot of goals. I thought we had more goal scorers against them that season. I really did. When you rack up 25 goals against them, it's only 11. I thought it'd be more.
It'd be more as well than that, to be fair, when you're thinking back at it. I mean, you could have picked the 9-0 though, Phil. That would have given us more of a chance. 9-0
That's it, Marc
Cairney. Yeah, you could have picked that season. We probably scored a similar. I think we emptied them for 4 a couple of times that year as well.
We did. We've done them a few times and up at Pataudry and everything as well. So, but yeah, we do. Oh, here he comes. He's coming back now. There we go.
He's coming back in now.
Phil's
just giving me all the answers, Russell. Phil's
nothing. We're just waiting on your first answer.
Something.
Just waiting on your first answer.
Switched to my mobile network, so I don't know if it'll be any better. But my broadband just went. It's what?
Sounds better.
So the only answer we've had so far is John who said Henrik Larsson. That's the only answer we've had.
Right, and I was trying to say that was quite controversial because he missed a lot of that season. Remember, he obviously got the leg break in September.
He did.
I thought that was
quite risky. That's Phil when you were away though, because I remember the 7-0 game on Celtic TV where Henrik, I think, got a hat-trick.
Oh, wait now. Oh, he's holding it right. Viduka,
yes. Viduka is a correct answer, yes.
I'm going to go for Lubo.
Yeah, Lubo's a correct answer as well. Yep.
Ian Wright?
Ian Wright is a correct answer, yes.
I thought he was a tricky one.
Yeah.
That was a trickier one. Going to go for... That's a great guess already, because I'm not very good with this. Paul Lambert.
Paul Lambert is a correct answer. Scored up at Pittodrie. Yeah.
Reggie Blinker.
Yeah, Reggie Blinker is a correct answer as well, yes.
I'm not going to Google while I was away.
Somebody did say that in the chat.
I'm not fucking... Just start with the obscure ones. Reverse psychology. They'll never believe it. No,
Again, I'm going to guess Petrov.
Petrov's the wrong answer, I'm afraid, Jonathan. It's a wrong one. Russell.
Tommy Johnson?
Yeah, Tommy Johnson did score against them. Scored in a cup final that season.
Take a wee break,
and
boys
a hat
and
trick
girls.
against them
It
in the
always
league
helps.
as well.
Yeah, I'm just going to chuck another one in there because I have no idea, to be honest. I don't remember any of these games. Mark Burchill.
That's a correct answer. Yes, keep sharing. Mark Burchill is a correct answer. But Russell, if you get this, you will get the point this week.
Here's the clue.
You don't need that. You know them all anyway.
All right. A clue to one of the missing answers is this Frenchman was prone to seeing red mist.
Oh, I know
Stefan Mahe! Yeah!
Liam Greenlaw's favourite defender. He absolutely loves Stefan Mahe.
I didn't even need to use a pen this week. Get in there.
So the two that were left. The two that were left.
I'm intrigued. I'm going to guess Martin Vicost.
No, it was not.
Thank fuck, because he was my next guest.
Aye. You're probably thinking about Martin Vicost the next season did a Rabona cross that landed right on somebody's head and we beat them up at Pittodrie. Remember he did the Rabona cross?
He scored a few good goals and some demolitions.
Yeah.
There's a few that little Z's posted to forget Vicost having a very decent few games.
One of the answers you said was Tommy Johnson, who scored in a cup final. Who scored in the other one in that cup final? Who scored the other goal? League Cup final 2000.
Craig Burley?
No, not Craig Burley, no.
I had Burley written down.
Burley was at Celtic that season for half a season anyway, but Burley didn't score. Vidar Risef.
Oh, shit, yeah.
And the other one was Eyal Berkovic, who at one point was Celtic's record signing. In fact, he was Celtic's record signing at that point in time. Yes, he was. But that was 11 of them. So, yeah, he's swept up pretty well there. He's got between his 9 out of the 11. So, yeah, that's a good showing compared to the one from 2 weeks ago, which we will not speak of ever again.
Scooby-Doo too, absolutely savage, mate. Absolutely savage. Bhoycie been Googling. No. Do you know what? Anyone suggests that I've been Googling, honestly. Just on another note, because we're using the wee banners.
Oh, Martin Neil Clarkson. I've seen that
It's
a long time.
It's time. Have you seen his rant about player power today? Thanks to Hill Times 2, who's a regular viewer. We've met up with Hill Times 2 a few times. Talk Sport, just gets on Twitter. Watch him talk about his spell at Nottingham Forest as manager. I got 19 games. He goes, you talk about player power. I used to, if Henrik Larsson came over to me or Chris Sutton and they told me what to do, he's like, I would have dismissed them. Well, I might have listened. He goes, but players of non-repute, players of nondescript, I think he calls them at Nottingham Forest. He goes, player power. He's like, do me a favour. He goes on like a 3-minute rant, starts rolling up the sleeves, and I'm like, the old Martin's back. Oh, it was so good. Oh, it's well worth the watch. Well worth the watch.
Check that out, man. I see him getting on fiery.
Alex says Weghorst was a neighbour back when he played for us. Well, you know, the same with the boy next door.
So Alistair Jackson, I missed Lubo. No, I didn't. John gave Moravchik as an answer.
Yeah, I said Moravchik.
Yeah, it was indeed.
But yeah, well worth a look. Find that O'Neill rant about player power. It's well worth it if you are of the Martin O'Neill fan club like we all are on the bus. Big thanks, Phil. Enjoyed that.
No worries. No worries at all, mate.
Apologies for the Wi-Fi dropout. I just switched back to mobile and used the old hotspot. I still think I'm on a wee bit of a delay, but it's fine. We got a win. It's all about getting the 3 points, getting the job done. And I think we'll see what happens with the format of the quiz. I'm happy to just go the full season, mate. I'm in for the long haul, Phil.
Okay.
I don't get beat easy. I don't like losing.
No.
I know I've got the fans behind me now because I've now managed to somehow buy the underdog tag. They went from wanting the younger brother to win last season to now wanting the underdog to win. And either way, I'm as unbearable if I get beat or I win. That's the thing. I'm a bad loser, but I'm a worse winner.
You're a terrible winner. Terrible winner.
It's so true. If I win, I might get it right round you.
Well, that's fine then. I'm absolutely fine with that. Not a problem
Let's
at all.
just do the full season. He'll choke. The fans know it. They can see it right now. Anyway, that was good fun tonight. Enjoyed it. That is Monday. All done and dusted. I'm going to go make some dinner. We've all uploaded it as an audio podcast, as all the shows tend to go on the Acast. I try and do it as quickly as I can. Remember, they're on Spotify, iTunes, all the usuals. I'll get that uploaded now. Going to make some tea. What did you have for dinner? I didn't know what to have.
I had some chicken.
The world's my oyster.
That's most of my lifestyle nowadays, eating chicken and rice. That's the type of stuff I'm allowed to eat now because of my diet.
Would you put anything exciting on it?
Absolutely, got spicy rice and spicy chicken. Like, I've got a bit of spice in it, man. Come on, spicy chicken. Mate. I think it was Cajun rice or whatever it was, but it was good. It was good. But
where did you get? Yeah, go on.
They're saying most of the stuff I eat nowadays, but that's pretty much stuff like that because I've got to now for very specific reasons.
Taking it seriously, mate. I like that. Yep. Jonathan, where did you get your chicken nuggets from tonight?
McDonald's.
I knew it.
McDonald's.
How many did you get? How many did you get in a Happy Meal?
Oh no, I've leveled up since then. The toys were rubbish. They don't put anything in them anymore that are any good. So I've had to up my game and get 9 nuggets.
Okay. Anyway, that'll do us for the night. Thanks to everyone who's watched. Remember, hit the wee like button on the way out. When you get off the bus, hit the like button. If you've not subscribed already, gives you a wee subscribe. Even Scooby D2 might gives a wee subscribe. Now he's realised it's not a Spurs podcast.
Keep your eyes on the board. Keep your eyes on the board.
Keep your eyes on the board. Keep your eyes on the board and everyone else. See you later.